Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. We are coming up quickly on our Christmas Eve service. I just want to remind you another time that on December 23rd at 6 p.m., both our Norman and Oklahoma City campuses, we will be live here for our Christmas Eve service. It's family friendly. Come sing Christmas carols, hear a great message, enjoy our lobby experience, bring your friends and family. It is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity and time of year for people to come and hear about the good news of Jesus and the hope that we can find in him because he is with us. I also want to just encourage you, if you haven't already heard, one thing we've done really since the beginning of the church is a thing called Project Christmas. That's an offering that we give throughout the end of the year that every dime of it goes to our local mission partners. It goes to help them reach the least of these in our communities. It goes to help them expand their ministries. None of it stays here, but it is a wonderful opportunity for you and your family to have a conversation about how you want to maybe do Christmas differently. And what we mean by that is maybe one less gift under the tree, but then each person in your family could give $75. That's our goal, because our goal is $75,000. There's 1,000 of us at Summit Church. $75 per person helps us reach our goal. But have that conversation with your family. If you want to give towards Project Christmas, it's super simple. summitonline.tv/give. And then when you are there, there'll be a drop-down box that says Project Christmas. If you give to that, every dime you give goes to Project Christmas and goes to our local mission partners. Help us reach our goal of $75,000 this year. We are well on our way, but it takes every one of us doing our part. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. We're in our third week of our series, God With Us. And what we're doing is we're just looking at the fact that God truly did choose to come down from heaven to be with us here on earth. The first week, we just unpacked that question. Is God really with us? And we looked biblically, we looked experientially at that. Is God with us? And we, I think, came to the conclusion that yes, he very much is with us. Then last week, we went to the valleys. Is God with us in our lowest moments? Is he there when we are desperate and in need? And the answer is absolutely. That's where God shines the most. Where our strength fails, his strength is greater. For he is great in our weakness. That is who God is. And we saw that last week. But the best way to experience God in the valleys is to be walking with him in the plains, to be walking with him on a daily basis. And today, we will look at God on the mountaintops, the exact opposite. The best moments in your life, is God with us there? On the mountaintop, and what does he want to teach us? What does he want to share with us? How should we best experience God, Immanuel, God with us? How's the best way to experience him on the mountaintops? And our theme verse for this entire series has been Matthew chapter 1, verse 23. I just want to read it quickly here again today. It says this: "The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Immanuel," which means God with us. That great hope, that great truth that anytime, anywhere, no matter what, God is with us. Should we choose to seek and believe that he's with us? Should we choose to believe and receive the fact that he is with us? He's there. But let's talk about the mountaintop first. What is the mountaintop? What are some mountaintop experiences in your life? Here are just some generic ones. These may not be yours, but just generic mountaintop experiences. What about your high school or college graduation? You're done. You did it. You accomplished a goal. You climbed the mountain and you were there. You were on top of the world in that moment. Some of you have experienced mountaintop moments as you're promoted through your career. You wanted to get to this level. You made it to that level, and that is a mountaintop experience without a doubt. In marriage, maybe it was your wedding day was a mountaintop experience. Maybe it was the day your marriage was reconciled. That was a mountaintop experience. Marriage, family can produce mountaintop experiences as simple as a vacation. And now a lot of times you come back from vacation, you're like, that was not the mountain. That was the valley. But For some, it's a vacation. It's a trip that you take. It's the birth of a child. What a mountaintop experience. It's the buying of your first home or the moving into your dream home. Those are mountaintop experiences. Financial wins. You as a family, we thought we would never reach this goal of getting out of debt, but we did. We did it today because we worked hard and God was with us. And boy, we can see that this is the mountaintop moment for us. Those are absolutely mountaintop moments. But what I want to talk about today are the biblical mountaintop moments. And those are a little bit different because biblical mountaintop moments are the ones where you experience God in a new and profound way. They're the moments in your life that do four things. And you're going to hear this a bunch today, so just buckle down, maybe even take some notes. But these experiences where your faith is increased, where you are given hope and strength to get through the valleys. You have a mountaintop experience to get you through the valley that's coming, where you know God is with you. Up until this point, it was believed that he was with you, but then on that mountaintop, you now know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, God is with me. He is Immanuel, God with us. And then the fourth thing on the mountaintop, that's where God speaks to you the most profoundly. That's what I've found in my life. So what I want to do today, just give two biblical examples of mountaintop experiences, tell you a personal story for me of one of my mountaintop experiences, but I want you to realize what we're talking about here. The mountaintop experience we're talking about is when you see God in a huge, new way. When he intersects your life at whatever moment, for whatever purpose, but you leave that experience going, okay, God, I got you. You're good, and you're real, and I love it. The first biblical example is the transfiguration. In Luke chapter 9, we covered this probably almost a year ago, but we covered this. Luke chapter 9, so this should be familiar for some of you. Jesus wants to take his disciples up on a mountain. It begins in verses 28 and 29. It says this: about 8 days after Jesus said this, he took Peter, John, and James. That's the inner three. Those are his closest disciples. He took them with him and went up onto a mountain, and Luke is the only one who says they went up on the mountain just to pray, to encounter God. They went to pray, to ask God. Verse 29, as he was praying, Jesus was the only one left praying, because just like in the Garden of Gethsemane, that'll happen here in a little bit, just like in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked those same three to pray and they fell asleep. They go up on a mountain at night, they fall asleep, Jesus is praying. But at that point, the appearance of his face, that's Jesus' face, changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. That's an incredible image. As bright as a flash of lightning. What's happening here? It's a Christophany. Big word that simply means this: when Jesus the Christ appears on earth in all of his glory. That's all that's occurring here. Jesus is appearing in all of his glory right here on earth. He's shining, he's glimmering, his glory, his heavenly glory is being displayed here on earth. Luke chapter 9, verses 30 and 31. Two men appeared at that same moment. Moses and Elijah appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. Can you imagine that conversation? They spoke about his departure, about Jesus' departure from this earth. That is after his death on the cross, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. So he's heading to Jerusalem. He's going to bring this to fulfillment. We have Moses and Elijah. Those are the two perfect people to show up at this moment. Moses represents the law. Elijah is the forerunner of the Messiah. They show up. That would have been incredibly cool, okay? But there's more to come. However, before that occurs, Peter starts to run his mouth. He wakes up, sees this. He's like, this is awesome. I've got some stuff I want to talk about. I'm not going to read the text, but he basically says, we should stay right here. We should just do this forever. We'll build you guys some tents. You can hang out up here. I want to experience this mountaintop moment for the rest of my life. Luke chapter 9, verses 34 through 35. But while Peter was still speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them. And they were afraid as they entered the cloud, okay? Are you picturing this? You've got Jesus glimmering white, bright as lightning. You've got Moses, you've got Elijah. You've got a cloud enveloping the mountaintop. Verse 35, a voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son." This is God's voice. "This is my son whom I have chosen." You need to listen to him. You need to listen. When God speaks, you listen. God spoke these exact same words at Jesus' baptism, except for the listen to him part. And I think that's huge for us today. Mountaintop experiences are not about us going up there and just shouting at God. Mountaintop experiences are about us going and listening to God. I think this listen to him part, the reason the narrative changed from Jesus' baptism to the mountain was because of Peter himself. He wouldn't stop talking. And God is saying, Peter, it's time for you to start listening. You're in my presence now. I'm with you. I'm here. I'm speaking. Can you please listen? You need to take this experience seriously. And so do you and I. When we are fortunate enough to be brought up onto the mountain and to hear from God, that is not our time to tell God what our business is or what he should be doing in our life. That is our time to listen. I can point to a small handful of mountaintop experiences in my life. I've had great moments, don't miss me, but I'm talking about moments where God met with me, brought me to a moment for a specific purpose so that I might experience his presence, hear his voice, and be moved. I can point to a handful, but the greatest one, and I've shared this story a couple times here, but it is my greatest mountaintop moment, was when I was trying to figure out what to do at 28 years of age, successful in ministry, but just lost. God, what do you want to do with me? I had so many opportunities, and that's not to boast. I could have done whatever I wanted. I could have left ministry altogether. I could have gone full-time speaking and traveling across the nation. I could have gone to several different churches across the nation. I had every opportunity in front of me, but I didn't know what to do. And so Paige and I, we had no kids at that point, we sat down and we fasted for 3 days, and we prayed for 3 days, and we journaled for 3 days. Lord, speak to us. But we didn't share with each other what we were journaling. And we went to the Blue River in Oklahoma, southeast Oklahoma, elevation 200 feet. It doesn't have to be a mountain. We went there. And as we broke our fast, we shared our journals together, we prayed together, and the Lord spoke more clearly in that moment to us what we were supposed to do than he has ever spoke in my life prior or since. That is a mountaintop moment. That is a mountaintop experience of the presence of God coming and saying, hey, I want to increase your faith. I want to move in your life. I have given you hope and strength. I want to give you direction. And the direction that came out of that mountaintop experience is Summit Church. That's where it came from, was that mountaintop experience. And that's what the presence of God does. When we get to have those moments to increase our faith, to give us hope and strength, to let us know that God is with us. He's got this. And I'll be honest, I never doubted that God was real, but in that season, I didn't know what I was supposed to do for God. I didn't know where God was, but he showed up in a huge way in that moment. And he gave direction by speaking directly to Paige and I. And I want you to hear the way he spoke was through us seeking him and listening and writing down everything we heard. And it just turned out to be that we were writing down the exact same things. And if you know Paige and I, that's not always the case. There's a second biblical example of a mountaintop experience. It's Elijah, one of the ones who was on the Mount of Transfiguration with Peter, James, and John. But Elijah, when he was on earth, he had a huge mountaintop experience. He had just destroyed the prophets of Baal and Asherah. He just had this huge mountaintop moment on Mount Carmel, but it wasn't where God spoke to him. He just had this great victory there, but that great victory came at a great price because he was a prophet under the reign of King Ahab, the one that the Bible said had done more to provoke the anger of God than any other king before him. This is a bad dude, and he just so happened to be married to a horrible woman. Her name is synonymous with horrible women. Her name's Jezebel. Ahab and Jezebel hear what Elijah had accomplished on Mount Carmel, and Jezebel says this, he won't make it another day. I will do to him tomorrow what he did to those prophets. He's done. And Elijah, after this beautiful moment on Mount Carmel, he is terrified, scared, and he runs. He takes off for his life because he knows that they can do what they say they're going to do. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4. On the run, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. Listen to this. He says, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. The prophets, the one who speak on behalf of God before me. My fellow Israelites, the children of God. I'm no better than them. Just end it now. And he lays down praying to die. While he's laying there under this tree, an angel attends to him, feeds him, and instructs him. We see that in verses 7 and 8 of 1 Kings chapter 19. The angel of the Lord came back to him a second time, touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. And I love how the Lord sends those to help us. This journey is too much for you to do on your own. Verse 8, so he got up, he ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. A 40-day journey told by the angel, you go 40 days this way until you reach the Mount of Horeb. There God will instruct you, and that's exactly what God does. God instructs Elijah and reveals his presence to him, a mountaintop experience. 1 Kings 19, verse 10, the Lord said to Elijah, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Now, that phrase pass by in the Hebrew is very interesting because it denotes a theophany, an appearance of God's glory here on earth. That's very important. We get the same phrase when Jesus went walking out on the water during the storm and his disciples were in the boat and he intended to pass them by and they looked out and they said, oh, it's a ghost. The reason they thought it was a ghost was because Jesus was revealing his full glory in that moment. It is when God comes to earth. That's what Elijah is about to experience. And in that moment, on that mountaintop, the wind came first, ferociously, and then an earthquake, a violent earthquake, and then a mighty fire. That was God showing his power. But he didn't speak to Elijah in any of those ways. He was just showing off a little bit. But then came a gentle whisper. A whisper that spoke to the soul of one who wanted to die, who wanted out, who was done. One who went from the Mount of Carmel to the valley very quickly. And that's how life can do it to us too. But in that gentle whisper, God met with him. God was with him. And here's what happened. 1 Kings 19, 15 through 16. Then a voice said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? He replied, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. But the Israelites have rejected your covenant. They've torn down your altars. They've put your prophets to death with the sword, and I'm one of them. I'm the only one left. Now they're going to try to kill me too. The Lord said to him, direction, kindness, nurturing. He said to him, go back the way you came. go to the desert of Damascus, specific instruction. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. Okay, that's your first thing. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. That's important. You need to do that. And then anoint Elijah, son of Shaphat, from Abel Maholah, to succeed you as prophet. Because I've heard you. You're done. But you have one final task. You've got to put the people in place that will allow for my glory and my purpose to move forward. You've got to go remove 2 horrible kings and replace them with good kings. And then you've got to anoint your successor, Elisha. And he'll do great things just as you've done great things. Your life has not been a waste. You have one more task, and this is it. Now go. And I'm not comparing my mountaintop experience with Elijah's. But Elijah was told the information he needed to fulfill his purpose. And that's what happened in my mountaintop experience. The Lord met him on the mountain, allowed him to be strengthened, gave him the faith, hope, and vision he needed to move forward. God was with him on the mountain. Those mountaintop experiences are sacred, beautiful moments that we should not expect on a daily basis, but they are moments that will profoundly impact our lives. And there are moments that I hope that we all get to experience. So here are some keys. Here's some keys to meeting God on the mountain. There's just 2 of them, so they're not difficult. Number 1, be obedient. Daily be obedient to what God is calling you to do. The disciples listened to Jesus when he said, follow me up on the mountain to pray. Okay. I mean, many of us have been like, I don't want to climb the mountain. Why do the other 9 not have to go? I don't want to go up at night and pray. I want to sleep. I'm tired. We've been doing ministry all day. But they said yes. They followed him up on the mountain and they experienced God in a profound way. One that only 3 other people got to see. Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. Those 3 got to see something incredible that night because they were obedient and they experienced something obedient because they were obedient. Elijah listened to the angel and traveled 40 days when he was ready to cash it in. You need to go to Mount Horeb, 40-day journey away. I'll feed you along the way, but he had to go. He had to be obedient. We need to realize, church, we don't get to pick our mountaintop experiences. Those mountaintop moments, we don't create them, okay? They're not for us to create. They're not planned by us. They're planned by God for your good and for his glory. I need you to understand this. As I spoke last week that God will meet you in the valley and you need to seek his presence there. You can't just say, I need a mountaintop experience here, God. We don't get to plan those. We get to be obedient to God on a daily basis, and then he grants us those mountaintop experiences as we need them for our good and his glory. The second thing we must do, we got to listen. God tells Peter, stop talking. Shh. Quiet yourself. It's my turn to speak. Now, he never tells Elijah to be silent, but Elijah waited. He waited through the wind, the earthquake, and the fire. Can you imagine the fear? Like, God, what are you doing? God, hey, this is terrifying. But he just sat there knowing that God was doing something. He waited and he listened. And then what did he hear? He heard the whisper. He heard the whisper of God speaking to him. Experiencing Immanuel, experiencing God with us on the mountain, it will increase your faith. It will give you hope and strength to get through the valleys, just like it did Elijah. And if you know the rest of the story, after the transfiguration, the disciples came back down the mountain and they were greeted by a father who they were unable to heal his demonic son the day before. So you come right off the mountain into a valley, but they are given strength to walk through those valleys, through those hardships. Those Immanuel moments on the mountain will let you know that God is with you. He is Immanuel. And those mountaintop moments will allow you to hear God where he speaks the most profoundly and the most loudly. And that's on the mountaintop when we're listening. That's when it happens. And I pray, church, I pray that this Christmas will be a mountaintop experience for you. Not that you can make it one. You can't choose to make it a mountaintop experience. But what you can do is daily seek and obey the Lord. That's what you can choose to do today. To not just live your life with all of the consumption that you want, but to give your life away instead. You can choose daily to seek the Lord, and you can listen and not get so caught up in this holiday that you miss the moments God has orchestrated to give you what you need for this next year, to overcome your current obstacles, to give you direction for those who feel like they have none, to let you know that God is here with you. This holiday, this Christmas season, it can be all of those things. And it could be a mountaintop moment for you, should you choose to obey, should you choose to listen. And I hope that this Christmas will be a mountaintop moment for many of you, if you allow it to be. And all you got to do, as simple as it is for me to say and as hard as it is for you to do, all you've got to do is listen and obey. Because God is Immanuel. He is with us. And he desires to be with us anywhere, at any time. But those mountaintop moments, those are the special ones. Those are the ones that lead us, guide us, direct us, encourage us, strengthen us. And those are the ones that I think far too often we miss because we're not listening and obeying. So may you, this Christmas season, have a mountaintop moment with Immanuel because God is with us. Father, come and meet us this season in your full glory, your full strength, with all your power and might. Speak to those who are willing to listen. Draw those into your presence who are willing to obey. And God, may we meet you. May we meet you on the mountaintop. May you come grab those who are in the valley and pull them up to have that experience with you. May we see you, God, for who you are and what you do. And we ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus, who came down from heaven to be with us, to be Immanuel. And we thank you. We thank you. Amen.